Hello, and welcome to the How to Exit podcast, where we introduce you to a world of small to medium business acquisitions and mergers. We interview business owners, industry leaders, authors, mentors, and other influencers with the sole intent to share with you what it looks like to buy or sell a business. Let's get rolling. And now a moment for our sponsors. I want to highly recommend you get Acquisition Aficionado magazine. Every month, Acquisition Aficionado magazine brings you tactics for business buying and selling you won't find anywhere else. Learn firsthand from industry leaders who share their success stories, featuring in-depth interviews and stories from leading figures in the business acquisition industry. This multi-platform mobile magazine speaks to acquisition entrepreneurs wherever they are in the journey. And I want you to visit acquisitionaficionado.com today. Hello and welcome to the How to Exit podcast. Today I'm here with Shane Ehrsam, and we are going to talk about mergers, acquisitions, growing business. You're an operator, man. I don't get a lot of operators on here. I'm trying. I told my team to go find me some people who have done this. Let's quit talking to the lawyers. Let's quit talking to the bankers. Let's quit talking to the, not quit, but just let's mix in some people that have been there, done that. So I want to, first of all, thank you for taking the time. I know you have a business to run now, and there's probably better things you could be doing in your life at this very moment. So thank you very much before we get started for sharing your knowledge and your time with us.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Cool. We always start off with the origin story. We always throw the old joke out. Hey, you were born and now you ended up on a show about mergers and acquisitions. How the hell did you end up on my show? Can you give us your origin story? What made you want to buy a company?
Yeah, absolutely. I was raised in a family with parents that were entrepreneurs. They owned a home care franchise. My father still owns for and has for 27 plus years now. And so that was always kind of the genesis of how I viewed business. I saw my dad as a business owner, wanted to be a business owner like him. Didn't exactly know what form or fashion that was going to take. After college, where I studied entrepreneurial management, I went out in the working world and got on with an industrial uniform provider and climbed the ladder with them for 11 years. Moved across the country 4 different times, just kind of got bigger and better opportunities. And at some point, or not at some point, I'd always dreamed that at some point I would be parlaying that experience into business ownership of some form or fashion. And I explored some franchise opportunities as side hustles throughout my career. My dad and I always talked about getting into business together in some form or fashion, and he actually sent me the Harvard Business book on how to buy a small business at some point, and so that kind of put the seed in there. And then fast forward to 2021, I was laid off after 11 years for a restructuring. I was given a decent severance, and then finally had kind of the opportunity in the moment where I was forced to look at what was next for my career, next in life, and felt I couldn't have picked a better opportunity or time if I was going to make business ownership a reality to do it, as kind of the next stage in my career. And my research of how to go from laid off to business owner ultimately led to Walker's book, Buy Then Build, which had me reaching out to a number of searchers, asking how did they get from searching to operating, what would they recommend. One of those searchers recommended Walker's Acquisition Lab, and I ended up joining that. And just I had a great experience, and it was really taught me a lot. And then launched a full-blown geographic search here in Dallas Fort Worth, where I live, and in January of 22. And shortly thereafter, found the business I ended up acquiring and ended up closing on that in June of 22.
A couple of the courses I've looked at, their entry requirement is you have a credit card. I know Walker pre-screens all of his guys, right? So the fact that you made it into his course says something about who you are and that he believed you could be an operator. He's trained his team to screen out quite a few. And he's one of the few courses out there that have, I don't know what, I think it's in the 80s or something. He has a really high percentage of his students that actually acquire companies because he does pre-screen them. He doesn't, if you've never had that background as an entrepreneur, if you don't have something that shows them that you'd be a great operator, they tell you, well, it's probably not right for you. So
Yeah, I get asked a lot about from people looking at the ETA search space, and I've put out a number of things out there praising the Acquisition Lab.
mhm.
So I get a lot of inquiries of like, why, what was so important? Would you recommend it? And what I'll say is, I wouldn't. I don't necessarily recommend it to everyone, but for me, I was heavy on the operational management experience. I was very light on the deal making, searching experience, right? So a lot of folks that come into this world from investment banking or PE or even consulting backgrounds, they understand the deal making part of it much better than I do, much better than I did at that point, but they might be light on the operational side. And so what the acquisition lab did for me personally was help kind of connect, marry that management experience with giving me that deal making experience, how to search, how to structure your search, how to interact with brokers, what questions to be asking. And so it really kind of helped propel from, a knowledge base of 20 to 30% to like 80 to, 80% to 90%. And it's not that people can't find that information out in other places. There's a lot of folks doing this. There's a lot of free resources out there. So it's not necessarily right for everyone, but it was a huge accelerator for me, and one of my big priorities was speed. I knew that my severance was going to run out and I wanted to replace my income. And so I wanted to make this acquisition process happen as quickly as I could. And so I was doing it full time versus a lot of folks who join or might take other educational courses are doing that while they're still at their corporate career. They're just trying to get education. They're trying to understand the space. For me, it was like, all right, I've decided I'm going down this path, so let me absorb all the information as fast as I can so that I can go out and execute a search with as much efficiency and as quickly as possible.
I get that, and you get guys like me who they have, the previous careers, previous investments, and then disabled veterans. I got checks from coming from different directions, so even I wasn't doing it full time right off the bat. I wouldn't consider what I do right now, like, I'm not a full-time searcher. I've acquired, pest control company and some other stuff. I'm still looking, but I still full-time searchers pulling 40 plus hours a week, and I still have time to go spend with my kids and taking on clients and stuff. I respect that you used the sense of urgency and found somebody that fit that. One of the cool things about these different programs, and I've done a couple, I'll openly say I have not paid for and done Walker's course. Like I said, it's more for operators, and I kind of look for a different type of business I can buy. I try to go I'm looking for things that are a little bigger. I already bought one where I have to be the operator of it. I'm trying to find something quite a bit bigger to where 50 plus employees and there's somebody there that just that operation role has been waiting for them, that they're ready to step up into it. And then I play more of the chairman of the board, and it is a long shot. Anybody that tells you you can, just buy a business and slap an operator in, I've been looking for 2.5 years and come close twice, but just, yeah, it's a very perfect raised condition to find one where you can insert just an operator off the street that or have interviewed, or pick somebody in the company and feel confident you're not going to have to go to that facility and run it for 8 to 10 months while everything irons out. The fact that you're jumping in, you bought this. Now, tell us what you bought and tell us well, first of all, tell us about your search. What did you go through? What kind of businesses were you looking at? And then how did you stumble across or find the one that you bought?
Yeah, so like I said, I spent 11 years at an industrial uniform service provider. And that's all about B2B services. And so I did not want to go back into that specific industry, but I wanted to use all of that experience, and I thought that could be applicable to a number of B2B service-based businesses, whether that was pest control, janitorial, commercial landscaping, a number of those. I wasn't particularly interested in home services, although I wasn't ruling it out. But if I could find something with B2B contracts, service based, I felt very comfortable doing that. That was exactly what I had been doing for a long time. But I was industry agnostic. And as I talked to brokers, I would try to remind them of that there's a lot of great businesses out there that just because I'm not saying that specific industry doesn't necessarily mean I wouldn't be interested in that, right? And I found through my search businesses that I had no idea existed that were good businesses, right? And I think that's the fun part about it is that there's so many ways to make money in this world, and there's so many businesses that find some specific niche or some specific product or service or client that they're servicing, and it's kind of stuff you don't even realize. And I was exposed to a lot of that in my at my uniform career. One of my favorite things was going to our different clients and touring these production facilities, touring these different facilities, learning about how their business worked and how they came to be as successful as they were, and just things you would never even think about. So it was hard to convey that at times to brokers because a lot of them want to pencil you in their CRM as the pest control guy or the janitorial guy, or and they only want to give you opportunities that fit that specific niche, but I tried, reiterating that if it was a good business with good financials, with a good team, solid history, of course, I wanted all those typical things that every searcher is looking for, but I was definitely willing to be flexible because the one area I was not willing to be flexible was on geography. I'm based in Dallas and wanted something within an hour's drive of where I live, and so I knew I needed to be flexible on the other items.
Cool. So you're in Dallas. Tell us, you stumbled across did you find this? You reach out to the broker, or did the broker actually finally bring you your trailer business?
Yeah, so I acquired a three location trailer dealership, and I'll get into the details of what we do. But I found it because I had a list of brokers that I was reaching out to. I did an email campaign, and then I started following up by cold calling these brokers, both those who had responded and those who hadn't responded. This particular broker had not responded to my emails, but used that as a baseline when I would get anyone on the phone. Hey, I sent you an email, just wanted to introduce myself. This is what I'm looking for. Do you happen to have anything that fits that criteria? And this broker was like, no, I don't have anything specific to that, but I did just sign this trailer dealership. Here's the financials, here's a little history about it. I still don't even have the sim put together yet. Is this something that's interesting? And I, of course, said yes. And so he sent me the financials as they worked on updating the sim. And so I had speed on my side because of that conversation. I was able to get access to the financials, have a conversation with the sellers, meet them in person before they ever publicly listed the business. And before I completed my LOI, the business had been publicly listed, Biz by Sell, and other areas. And so they started to get a lot of inbound flow and even some other offers. So, if I hadn't had that speed on my side, if I hadn't caught that broker on that particular day and he hadn't answered the phone, who knows what might have happened. I might not be the owner today. So,
So you got 3 locations, around the Dallas Metroplex area, probably like Plano and that type of stuff, right?
yeah, we're in Fort Worth, Louisville, and McKinney. Yeah, so we got pretty good coverage, especially across the northern and west part of the DFW area. The folks I bought it from started the business in 2007 with one location. They acquired a second one 2 years later, and then they started the third one another 3 years after that. And so all three locations have been around for 12 years now. And I think the previous founder had always dreamed that he would add even more locations, but got to three and realized the challenges that come with having three locations of a business, and they started getting to the point where the business was throwing off enough cash that they were very comfortable with where they had gotten the business to. So that's certainly an opportunity, and in this industry, kind of the, I guess, best and most obvious way to grow is through geographic expansion by adding locations and having a different geographic footprint. But that's hopefully in the cards down the road. But right now we're just trying to focus on making the three locations we have today as solid as we possibly can.
So your primary customer is, I guess there's some B2B in there, people who have small businesses and needing a little cargo trailer, or a small construction company need a dump bed trailer, a utility trailer, and that type of stuff. Landscapers needing landscaping trailers and that type of stuff. But is a lot of it still the farming community, the guys out there? Do you have cattle? I mean, what type of trailer are you carrying? You carrying cattle trailers and that type of stuff, stock trailers and stuff too, or?
So we'll do service and repairs on any type of trailer, and we do get those horse and RV and cattle trailers, but we don't actually sell any.
Okay.
So one kind of big difference between us and some of our competition is with a trailer dealership, you need a lot of land, or as much land as you can. And so, because land is expensive, especially in the Metroplex, most of the dealerships are located outside of town. They're kind of on the outskirts along a highway, and where you can get 4 to 5 acres, put up a shop and a office relatively cheaply, right? And you'll find that really across the country, most of these dealerships are kind of on the outskirts of town. We're very much decidedly in town. We have smaller lots than some of our competition, but what that benefits, or the benefits that gives us, is that we have access to businesses and can make the parts and repair side of the business even more convenient than some of our kind of out of city competition. So we actually, while we will sell a trailer to anyone and everyone, we really try to focus on our B2B customers, and we even do a lot of government business as well. So, yeah.
Okay. So it's and I'm just trying to think of the different types of businesses out there. A lot of those home service businesses we were talking about before the show or talking about earlier that you didn't want, they all have, needs and uses of trailers. And so I can see where the big now the problem I see in this space, and I just wanna know if it's true, at some point, a company's gonna get big enough, they're gonna go factory direct and not wanna go through a little like, if I need 3 trailers, I'll probably come to you, right? I need 35 trailers, I'm probably gonna wanna go to somebody, a little more direct and cut out the dealership. Does that happen to you, or are you able to do larger orders for some of these companies?
It does happen, yes. It is actually illegal in Texas for the manufacturer to sell direct to
Oh,
a
wow.
consumer. And they protect that dealer relationship, and all of our dealer partners, or all of our manufacturing partners, very much respect the dealer relationship. But that's not true across the country from a legal standpoint. And certainly the biggest companies that have the most trailers on the road are probably going to go factory direct. But there's a lot of business out there. There's a lot of local business out there that might have anywhere from 3 to 5 to 50 trailers, and they need some way to keep them maintained. They need someone when they need to upgrade or replace, or if they need to expand their fleet.
Mhm.
And then certainly the cities, which we do a lot of business with, they're utilizing those trailers for their road and bridge departments, their maintenance, their parks and rec, and in a whole lot of other use cases as well. And so, yes, at a certain size factory direct, and for maybe certain types of trailers, that is the case. But for a lot of them, particularly here in Texas, that's not the case.
So what about the maintenance? I'm a big fan of finding businesses I can turn some portion of them into recurring revenue if possible. Are you able to do maintenance contracts with the cities and stuff where they on a schedule bring you things to repack bearings, or is it just break and fix?
So there's a sweet spot there where when companies have enough trailers and trucks in their fleet, they'll generally have an in-house mechanic team.
Okay.
But below that, that's where we can come into play, and we can be their outsourced service or repair team. And even with those in-house mechanics, they need to get the parts that go in those trailers somewhere, and so we can provide those as well. And so we don't have any recurring contracted business. That is something that I'd like to explore in the future. We do have a lot of reoccurring business though,
Mm.
and a lot of customers that continually come to us to get their parts, to get their service done. And I recently hired a outside sales rep that is going out and trying to find more of those businesses where we can create more of those relationships, partnerships, where we can kind of help own every part of that trailer life cycle. When they need to add to their fleet, they need to replace something in their fleet, they need to repair something in their fleet, or they need a part for something in their fleet, we can be their trusted brand that they come to.
It's interesting. A lot of these industries are going to what they call it, like mobile mechanics and stuff. Have you considered that realm? Meaning that, like, for instance, we looked at buying a kind of a junk haul off service in Oklahoma before I moved here to California. They had 13 dump bed trailers and probably 20 something roll offs, primarily servicing like home remodelers and certain small businesses that need a quick roll off just while they're doing nothing permanent, right? Or they just need it for a few months type of thing. And that company had something cool. Their mobile mechanic, who was fixing servicing their trailers, and he came by their lots on a Saturday, once a month, inspected all the tires on all the trailers, inspected the bearings on them, maybe greased some things. But he would write a report on which trailers needed to go, over to his place, or had to stay in the lot that week so he can, swap bearings out and stuff. So maybe that's a way to get service contracts too. Is you have a guy that if somebody's got 25 trailers sitting on a lot, they're not going to bring them over to you one by one, but you might be able to get yourself one of your mechanics or something to go out and go, look, we'll send a guy over once a month. And we'll inspect all the tires. We'll inspect all the bearings. We'll make sure your axles don't look like they're bent. All the things you can do to a trailer. Ask me how I know
Yeah.
about bent axles. I had one of those dump bed trailers, and I had somebody load it with gravel, and I didn't realize you could bend the axles on the 7,000-pound axles. So it doesn't take much gravel. You can't fill up a dump bed trailer with gravel. That's a bad idea.
No, no, it's almost inevitable that that customers who have dump trailers are going to break them at some point. But yeah, that's absolutely a growth area. It's not something we have today, but it is very much something that I want to explore in the future as we continue to try to lean into our B2B capabilities. And for all those customers that are building dump and roll off businesses, we certainly want to be a preferred partner. We actually have a partnership with a local company that does specifically that, because we don't rent dump trailers or roll offs because it's really not the business that we're in. But We have a partnership with a company that does, and we maintain all of their equipment. They buy all of it through us, and so the benefit there is that if a customer has a dump trailer need, regardless of whether it's rental, short term, long term, purchase, repair, we have a solution for them, whether it's through us or through our partnership.
It's cool. Walk us through, okay, the broker brought it to you, you go through the whole process. Did you use an SBA loan or did you buy it through other means?
Yep, use the SBA loan, even a little bit more highly levered than kind of the traditional 10-10-10 route, was 5-15-20 or
Mhm.
80, I should say, route, and was a stock purchase as well. And so there's a whole lot of things that came with that, but it ultimately was the best decision for both the sellers and I, and but made it happen. And yeah, so
Was it a 60-day, 90-day? What was the process from the day you talked to the broker to the day the SBA closed it and, theoretically got the keys to the kingdom, it became yours?
yeah, it was basically right at 4 months from that first conversation with the sellers to the closing table. It was about a month worth of negotiating the LOI and then a 90-day close from signed LOI to the closing table. We spent a lot of time, like I said, it was a month long kind of negotiation on the LOI. And there's various thoughts out there, right? There's various kind of things that are taught. Get a business under LOI, it's non-binding, doesn't really matter what's in there, and you can negotiate everything later, or spend a lot of time negotiating the LOI so that the rest of the APA process goes smoothly. And that's the route we took. And so a lot of the structure and financing and meeting with banks, ensuring that they would be willing to back the deal. And a lot of those things took place in those first 30 days, so that the rest of the process could go as smooth as possible.
Yeah, I've interviewed a lot of people who are experts on that SBA lending process, and one of their biggest pet peeves is people negotiating LOIs and even signing purchase agreements before they talk to the SBA lender. And they're like, all the lender can do is look at you and go, "Congratulations, you negotiated a deal we can't close," right? So there is something to be said for what you did because bringing them in early and knowing what the structure is they require is different because you as a new acquisition entrepreneur, even me, if somebody who's never used an SBA loan, they do things differently than what you would even expect. You logically think, okay, if they had this and this and this, it's good. Or you can even read their little, they have documents out there that say what they require. I still say you should work with somebody, and you could read that 100 times and still not structure a deal to where your lending provider can get it done. Mainly because the bank has some say too. So whoever the bank is that is working with the SBA, they have their own level of requirements they layer on top of. So yeah, so I would say if somebody said no to you, it's not the SBA loan. If you think you're within realms and you get told no, call another bank because chances are you didn't trigger one of the SBA's disqualifications. You triggered one of the banks. So
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, I would advise anyone that's in the search process to be networking with lenders. Meet your local lenders, meet national lenders, tell them your story, tell them what you're looking for, get an idea of what they're comfortable with, what they're looking for in a deal or in a person. I had three different lenders that I had built a pretty strong relationship with prior to finding this business, and then met two additional lenders that were referred by the broker through the process, and ultimately ended up using one of them. But because I had multiple banking relationships, I could go into that LOI with a very strong degree of confidence that the bank has looked at this. They've seen all of the initial, documentation. They've seen my personal balance sheet, my resume. They've gotten comfortable with me. They're comfortable with the deal. We have a very, very high confidence to close, and that the bank is going to commit to this.
It's another thing that a lot of these acquisition entrepreneurs need to learn too is the business can maybe be bankable, but you have to be bankable too. So the bank's still going to look at you. They're going to look at the business, of course, but a lot of people think if I find a good enough business, they won't care what my credit score is, or they won't care about my balance sheet. And I was like, it's not true. They're betting. This is one of those horse races that has the cart behind it. You're still the horse. You're the one towing that cart. Chariot races, or what are they called? There's a name for them. There's a more formal name for it, but yeah, you might be riding in that chariot back there, but you still have the reins, and they're gonna evaluate you just as much as any other lender would. And
Hmm.
I've had people where we were talking to, and he goes, "Yeah, I got a great deal, and yeah, we're gonna get this through an SBA loan." I thought you told me you had a 550 credit score. They're like, "Yeah, but they won't care. This deal's really good." I'm like, "They will care. You know, go find yourself a partner. Find somebody that's got a better track record and a better credit score than you, because you 'cause you're gonna need it."
Well, and they all have, they, like I said, they all have different requirements. They all have different things that are more important to them than
Mm,
the next guy down the street. And that's not to knock any one of them. They have their criteria, they have their credits criteria, and that they have to adhere to that, right? And
yeah.
like I had a couple lenders tell me I needed 10% of the transaction value in post-closing liquidity. And I was like, I'm only putting 5% into this deal. That's all. There's no 10% of the transaction value afterwards that's just sitting in the bank not being, why would I be only putting 5% if I had another 10% sitting in the bank? And so those types of things where you got to learn what they're looking for and what they're not looking for, and then find the bank that's willing to take you plus the deal.
I think I was watching some stuff that Dan Pena put out, and he said if you're getting turned down for money, you just haven't talked to enough banks. There's always somebody stupider than you willing to needing to make a deal. He even recommends some of his guys like, look, just start finding the local community banks that cater towards business, and the ones that opened up within the last 30 days, because they need to fill up their book of business and look good in front of their bosses. They're more likely to give you a loan. But, yeah, it's a numbers game. I honestly think it is. If you get told no, you gotta go to the next one. As long as you have strong foundations and you know you're bankable, you gotta find, that. And there's the second thing you did right is now you have options, right? You've talked to 4 or 5 different banks, you know what they require. If you only talked to the one that said you needed 10% reserves, now you're gonna go, "I gotta go find an investor and give them some of my equity to try to drum up 10% reserves," when you've already talked to enough banks to know that not everybody asks for that. Right?
Hmm.
So, you did yourself a good service there by kinda already having the fillers out and knowing what people want. Talk about the closing process. What did it look like? And when you closed the loan, when did it hit you that, "Man, I own this now?" Like, when did that set in?
Yeah, I mean, man, there was some tense couple days there. I mean, the sellers and I had a great relationship. There was a couple negotiating points that we both felt pretty strongly about, and the broker had to kind of bring us both back to the table. And ultimately, we both, all parties wanted the same thing. They wanted to sell the business to me. I wanted to buy their business. Some of these smaller points of contention, they just needed to be smoothed out. And then the SBA requirements, there was some hiccups there, just things that they needed from me, some documentation they needed from the business. I remember the day before closing was this mad sprint with probably 100 emails going back and forth between the sellers, their attorneys, my attorneys, the bank's attorneys. And it's simple things like getting titles to all the rental trailers that we have in our fleet, getting certain documentation to the buildings. And, a lot of this, it felt like, obviously doing due diligence, we had a whole data room and we had all that, there's so much asked for, and the sellers had so much of it organized and ready to be presented. But then the day before closing, as the SBAs, or I guess as the bank's lenders are combing through everything, they've kind of got a different checklist than either the seller or I did. And so that was a mad dash. And then yeah, and then the day of closing, we closed in the late on a Friday afternoon, and the day of closing was relatively calm. And then the next day we all met at the office and I got introduced to the employees. And that's certainly that night, after signing document after document, felt pretty real. But then standing in front of the employees and then directing everyone to go out and count hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of parts to do our working capital true up, that's when it definitely started to feel real.
How did the employees take it? Did they know at this point that the business was for sale, or was it really a shock to them?
It was not told to the employees, and so I think they all kind of thought, they all knew something was up, because it's very rare that we get all the employees from all three locations under the same roof.
Mhm.
They were all asked to come to one central location, and we had told them, or the sellers had told them in advance, we were going to be doing an inventory. And so I think they probably understood that an inventory was necessary, but not real. Why is it, now here in the middle, first part of June? And things got pretty emotional. The sellers were emotional. Some of the employees were emotional. We have a long tenured group of employees that have been with those sellers for a long time. And of course, they don't know me from Adam. And so it was pretty tense there in the first couple of days of like, all right, I know that there's some strong relationships here. Am I going to be able to prove to these employees that I'm the right steward for the business, and that they can put their faith in me? And certainly it didn't happen overnight. It took several months, and proving to them that I was going to keep my word and I was going to do the things necessary to improve the business. One thing I said on day one, and I continue to reiterate it through those first few weeks, is I'm not making any changes for the first 90 days. There's literally no changes going to be made. And I even specifically called out, like, don't ask about a raise, don't ask about compensation. Nothing's changing for 90 days. And at that point, I will reevaluate and take a look. And after 90 days, I ended up giving everyone an off-cycle raise and then started down the path of implementing some other benefits and things like that. But a lot of what I did to try to kind of earn the trust of the employees was look for low-hanging fruit. What are the roadblocks that you have in your day-to-day? What equipment's working for you? What equipment's not working for you? What processes are we following that could maybe be smoothed out a little bit or a little bit simpler? And just as I got more and more feedback, I would, if it was a small, easy thing to change, okay, I'd change that. If it was a bigger kind of longer term things, like, all right, let's add it to the list and let's, start thinking about a plan to attack that in the future. And so that definitely helps create some mutual buy-in from the employees.
Did you do that through one-on-ones? You taking people to lunch? What did it look like to get that information out of the employees? Did people just randomly walk in your office and go, "Now that you're here, I need this fixed"? I mean, I'm sure there's a mix of it, right?
It was definitely a mix of it. We definitely had some lunches, some one-on-ones. The first 30 days was a lot of working alongside the sellers to properly transfer everything. Like I
Mhm.
said, it was a stock purchase. So just making sure that all the money was flowing to the right places, bills were getting paid on time, payroll was getting paid on time, transferring and downloading their knowledge, doing the working capital true up and documenting all of those things. And so the first 30 days that took up the majority of my time. But after those 30 days, the sellers weren't there as often. They were still helping transition as necessary, but they weren't there as often. And I started really working kind of in the business alongside my employees. And so we had a key employee leave in the first few weeks that was in service and sales. And so I kind of had to step in and be the de facto service salesperson alongside one of my other employees in one of the stores. And I don't really, at that point, I barely know the difference between a utility and a cargo trailer, and I'm out there trying to sell. But it was a fast way to try to, it was kind of trying to learn everything quickly and just pull from the other employees. And I always approached everything as humbly as I could. It's like, you guys are the experts, you know trailers. I don't know trailers, so if I'm going to help in any way, I need you to help, right? You help back me up to give me the knowledge necessary to be at least to not look stupid in front of our customers. But I always kind of reverted to, you guys are the experts. I'm not here to change how we repair trailers, how we sell trailers necessarily. My experience is in managing and running teams and operations, and I feel pretty confident in my abilities there. And I'm really here to just try to make this a better business and make the experience for our customers and for our employees that much better. And so I'm going to look for those things where I can help in that way versus changing the technical aspects of anything that we did.
Got it. And then was there any, like, real lessons learned, like, "Hey, if I do this again, I'm doing it differently this way," or any aha moments along the process that the other acquisition entrepreneurs listening to this, that they should know as they go through this?
I don't there's not anything that really stands out as like, man, I really wish I had done that differently. I feel like we kind of did things as we wanted to. I didn't get any access to the employees or the customers or the suppliers until after closing. I know in some situations the entrepreneur can get access to those three things or one or two of those three things beforehand and maybe validate. And I think in a business where you have strong supplier or customer concentration, that's probably necessary. And we're a distributor for our suppliers, so we do have some supplier concentration risk, but ultimately that all went, really smoothly. So yeah, no like huge mistakes made or really big things that I regret doing.
Was this independent or a franchise?
Independent.
Cool. So
To my knowledge, there are no franchise dealerships. There are some corporate owned by some of the larger manufacturers, like Big Tex is the number one brand out there, and they have 65 company owned stores, but there are no true franchises in the trailer business.
okay. And then, so what's your goal as far as expansion, or how long you gonna be operating what you have now? Or are you gonna open new locations, buy other people out and rebrand them as yours? What's the can you share a growth plan or what your idea is here?
Yeah, like I said, I think we have a lot of runway with the three stores we have today in professionalizing, continuing to professionalize our sales approach, continuing to build out our B2B sales process. We still have a lot of runway there. I think we can probably double or maybe even triple in size and revenue with the three stores that we have. We That requires getting very, very, very dialed in and laser focused in what we do. But beyond that, yeah, geographic expansion definitely is probably the next growth lever. And I've looked at a couple acquisition opportunities, just looked at one yesterday, in fact, and I think there's going to continue to be room and opportunity over the next few years to do that. I have some competition that I look up to here in Texas that are regional players with 8, 9 stores across Texas and surrounding states, and I don't see any reason why long term I couldn't execute something similar to that. Not to diminish, say that that's easy, because I know it's not. It takes years and years of building your practices, creating great SOPs, creating a great structure. And so I'm only 2 years in at this point. I still have a long way to go to continuing to build that foundation, but have certainly put a lot of work into doing that so that the foundation is built, and then we can just layer on growth from there.
This is one of the industries where it's not uncommon for it to be that scenario of the minnow that swallows the whale, right? So you said you got 2 or 3 out there that are much bigger, 9 or 10 locations. It's not a bad idea just to put the word in the ear if you're making friends with them anyway, or if you're associating with them in any ways. Hey, if you ever decide to retire, I'd look at buying you guys too. And you could even say it kind of in jest. When I bought the pest control company, I called the 30 or so competitors in town that I would love to own. They're way bigger than us, and I called them every few months for a little while there. It's like, "Hey, you ready to retire yet?" And I just got to know them, right? And a lot of those guys got bought up by PE. So now when I call, like, "Oh, well, yeah, the PE offered us 7x," and I was like, "Yeah, take it, man, run. Don't call. What are you calling me for? I'm paying that." That said, it's created the cool thing is they tend to buy up a bunch. PE tends to buy up a bunch in a particular area, and then they start overpricing the service. So now we're the low cost guys, and that's okay. We're getting business, and we specialize in something weird that I'm a big B2B guy myself. So, and I have connections into the real estate community. So, like you did the B2B, I hunted down like, okay, who's gonna need our service every month? And it's guys, all the guys that own Airbnbs. So we inspect 30 or 40 Airbnbs. This is how we kind of got our start. So
That's
I
great.
always look for, who needs this on a regular basis. So did you go through that when you bought the company? You start looking around and go, who else has 30 or 40 trailers sitting around it, or maybe 15, 20 trailers? Where's that sweet spot you say? Have you guys developed a list of that, or did they already have that in place when you got there?
We've done a lot of work in developing that, identifying our ideal customer profile, who are the types of companies we want to sell to, who are the decision makers within those companies. So yeah, we've done a lot there, and a lot of that was formulated based off of just looking at who are we already servicing today, and having success with. And what I found is that we have a number of businesses, mostly trailers are definitely there's definitely a relationship to the construction industry. As the construction industry does well, the trailer industry follows, and all of the trades that service the construction, industry. Those are a lot of our customers. And I just kind of looked at, all right, the frequency of buying. Who's in here buying parts? Who's in here getting service done? And we have a lot of reoccurring business on that side of the business, and a lot of them are those types of companies that have a close proximity to one of our dealerships, where we make it convenient and easy for them to do business with us, and they've built up a level of trust. And so being in North Texas, that continues to get migration from all over, and there's no projections of it slowing in the near future. We're going to continue to have more and more businesses, more and more residents, more and more construction. And so I know that there's a lot of those types of clients out there that we can continue to find and call on.
So I love Dallas area, and I love it because I'm a country boy and country guy. I grew up on a little pecan grove. There's something to be said about a lot of these. Even Dallas is a huge city with a small city personality. In that, I still think it's a little bit of the good old boy network. People like to do business with people they like and know. So when you reach out to all these new business owners and stuff, they kind of want to get to know you. They want to know who the owner is and stuff. These small companies do. It's different in bigger urban environments that, in here in California and stuff, they're looking for the best price, right? I say that where I'm living right now is in a very awkward place considering it's in California. There's Trump signs up around us, but, people like vote for Trump, which is not common in California. But also there's a thing here called the bohemian mindset, and it's more of a Southern mindset. People take care of each other. If they know you're local, they give you a discount, and they wanna know the owners and stuff. So you walk into a place and you meet the owner and get to chat with them and stuff. How do you guys go about making that introduction? I know some of the guys, they do things like customer appreciation, barbecues or something. I don't know what it is that you're gonna how do you reach out to all these new potential people on your list and make that connection to where there's not like a BNI group for guys running lawn care services that are out in the hot sun all day. They're not going to a BNI meeting. So my curiosity is what have you come up with to reach out to these customers?
Yeah, there's definitely more we could be doing in that way. The sellers had built a business to the point where they could be semi-absentee, and
Mhm.
so they were definitely not the face of the business. And they had propped up our customer-facing employees to really kind of run their stores and be more of that face of the business. And so there's a lot of customers that we service today that don't know who I am, but they know my service advisor, they know my sales rep, they have a great relationship with them, and I'm perfectly okay with that. In
That's
fact,
good,
that's
buddy.
probably my preference.
Yeah,
But, as we've made a concerted effort to go and acquire new customers, I'm being more active on that side. We just were a platinum sponsor at a big home contractor convention show and brought two trailers in, and me and my sales team were there. And I was meeting and greeting, and we set up some happy hours with some clients and just trying to do some peer group type things. And so, I very much enjoy doing that, but I don't necessarily want to be the point person that every customer's calling when they need something. So
I was gonna say, if you're in Tulsa, say, go to Tulsa State Fair because 'cause they've always got, like, a big farm selection. There's different tractors and different trailers. But they have huge convention halls at it's a state fair. There's rides and carnival stuff
yeah.
and stuff like that. But, the air conditioning buildings, when you wanna get out of the Oklahoma heat, those are ones where they have all the jacuzzi tubs and massage chairs and trailer supply and repair and sales, and you can walk around and kick tires on things. But I was curious if you're doing any of that type of trade show marketing, and then what are you doing to, people pull people from those to build deeper relationships with? I love that you're not the face of all 3 sites, and it's not a single person because what you would have to get out of that in say 5, 10, 20 years from now when you decide it's time to sell, right? Now you gotta go back and do what the sellers did before you and move yourself as key man. If you continue to build it the way it's already setting, when you're the nomad, you go from one spot to the next spot that needs you, but you're not the face. It makes it you did the book Buy It and Build it, Walker Dable's program, now you can do the built to sell, right?
Yeah, I 100% adhere to that, and I'm a firm believer in that. It's not because I don't want to work hard or don't want to interact with our customers, but my skill set and my time is much more valuable in doing things that help make my employees and my customers' experiences better.
Mhm.
And I think if I continue to approach every aspect of the business with that as the guiding light, I will look up 5, 10, 15 years from now, or 50 years from now, whenever the time is right, and I will have built a business that is very sellable and is creating a great environment for our customers and for our employees. And so that's the goal.
So, let's talk about how does it feel now? How long have you owned it? How long ago was the
It'll
acquisition?
be 2 years next week.
Okay. So you're into this for 2 years, you're pretty concrete, you've made some changes already. How does it feel? How does it feel owning it now? You make the right decision? Would you have bought something bigger? Or you can just smile and tell me that, that was an inappropriate question, and we'll cut it out of the show altogether.
No, no, no. I very much love what I do. I find it's very rewarding work. I will never, knock on wood, I will never go back to a large corporation as an employee. The ownership aspect suits me well. It suits my mentality well. I love doing this. I didn't come into this, and I get asked all the time when I meet other trailer dealers, like, why the hell did you choose the trailer dealership? And it's like, well, I didn't necessarily choose it because it was in trailers, but I chose it because the business had a lot of great fundamentals. It's got a dedicated team of employees, a lot of whom have been with us for a long time, and probably 85% of those employees from when I bought it 2 years ago are still with us today. And so as long as, like I said, as long as I think I keep my North Star on in improving the experience for our customers and for our employees, that I will feel a lot of fulfillment in what I do, and the business itself will continue to improve. And ultimately, as the owner, that obviously benefits me and my customers and my employees. And so I think there's a way to continue to do this, to continue to stay motivated and interested in it where all parties benefit.
Yeah, do you stay in touch with, Walker's crew and the people you met and that? I'm sure you like, one of the things I learned from going to some of these courses is more important than the course was the other people in it because we helped each other. We leaned on each other. We asked questions. I still host a meetup twice a month to this day. We meet on the 1st Tuesday and 3rd Tuesday of every month for people who are looking to buy or already bought, and the goal is we do a little round of networking, and then we try to make sure that nobody leaves stuck, right?
Yeah.
A lot of the guys from the show up. A lot of the guests and advisors and stuff show up to these calls, and we help answer people's questions and make sure they're not stuck somewhere. Did you maintain some of the relationships from the Walker Dables? Did you stay in contact with some of those guys? Did you build some relationships out of that program?
Yeah, 100%. And I still get on the what they call the search forum where people can actually present real deals. And I've actually presented a couple add-on acquisitions that I personally was looking at and wanted to get the feedback from both Walker and the rest of the group. But I stay involved. I love the SMB community. I just hosted a happy hour here in Dallas a couple weeks ago with Rand Larson. I just was at SM Bash, I guess about a month ago. I wish I had unlimited funds for a number of reasons, but a big part of that is so I can continue to invest in searchers, and every deal that I find that looks interesting, man, I'd love to back as many searchers as I can. And obviously, can't do that. I have limited funds, and obviously need to take care of North Texas trailers, and all the responsibilities that come with that first and foremost. But I absolutely love this community. I want to stay involved in it. I love that I both love and hate that it's getting popularized. Obviously, it's creating more competition. There's definitely some fake gurus out there that are coming into the space, but I also think it's an amazing opportunity. We all know about the silver tsunami, and we all know that there are a lot of great businesses out there that people have put their blood, sweat, and tears into for their entire livelihoods, and those businesses need to be transferred. They're either they get transferred or they cease to exist. And it would be a shame for some of these businesses to cease to exist. And so it's great that more and more people are coming into it. And having done a couple podcasts, I've talked to a lot of searchers, and I I hear people or people contact me because they're now looking at a trailer dealership, and it's probably something they never would have looked at before.
Yep.
And so I think that's great. I think it's great that we're getting a new generation of folks coming into these businesses, and all the good things that can come with that. So yeah, absolutely maintain relationships, love the space, want to continue to stay involved in it with the available time that I have.
I was telling you before the show, I looked at one close, yeah, within about 30 miles of me, and the land was just so crazy expensive that we'd have had to move it and find in a location. It was one of those ones where it had a few acres, right? I think I had probably sitting on 5 or 6 acres, and the town grew around it. Like this is California, so the kind of condos sprung up all the way around this thing. So it kind of looked at a place where it was because it was on a rural road coming into town, and all of a sudden they built the farmland around it, sold, and they built condos all around it. Now there's drive-through fast food next door and condos all up and down the road. So he's been outplaced because he's not going to be able to sell that business because of the value of the real estate underneath it. The only reason I brought that back up on this show and telling you again about it was the fundamentals of the business were good, right? I just kind of was, I guess I was bored at the moment, and I seen it pop up on Biz by Sell, and it was close. And most of the stuff close here are bars and restaurants and stuff because we're in a vacation destination kind of area of the world, surrounded by vineyards. And I thought, wait a second, a real business. I'll take a look at that. So I kind of took a look at it just to see one of those maybe out of boredom. But the fundamentals were good.
Hmm.
There's the dealerships business uh, is good. And they were a little different. They actually been around for 40 something years, and I don't know if they've started one of the brands or had some type of manufacturing license, but they built certain custom trailers there for a couple of, I won't say the brand because I don't know if they were I don't know what the relationship, and I don't know, we signed NDAs, so I don't know what I was supposed to say and what I can't. But they could build some of them. So they did a lot of some of the custom some of the trailers to do custom. When I say build, they brought in the big frame units, but they would custom design which axles go underneath it, which weight class it was, and, you know, if it was a dump, which how much it could lift, what type of hydraulics were underneath it, whether it's a scissor ones or a big, huge, but they could build things out for people. And I was impressed by the numbers. So I think you picked a business that's a solid industry. I don't think the industry is going to go anywhere. It kind of sucks a little bit that it's tied to the construction space because that's always in question. It runs in cycles, but
Hmm.
you know, almost all businesses are going to have a little of that.
Yeah, and for sure, it was a concern. But when I looked at the macroeconomic trends of Texas
Hmm.
and the growth of Texas and what that, I lived here during the recession, and we were certainly less impacted than other areas of the country. And so I felt confident that even if there was another recession, some of those same things would be true. So I'm long on Texas. I'm long on trailers.
Yeah, I loved it. We only left Texas because when COVID hit, it got strange. It got really strange there. Everybody was locking down, and we owned 5 acres in Oklahoma that paid free and clear on a little farm. So we grabbed our tiny home and everything and just went back to where we knew, right, and just kind of let this thing blow over instead of get out of the high populated areas because people kind of getting weird about things. So good state. I appreciate your time, man. I know you got other stuff to do and you got things going on. You get your dogs there. I appreciate everything. Thank you for that. If somebody could walk away with two or three like takeaways, what would you want them to think about this whole acquisition entrepreneurship thing?
Yeah, like you said, you don't talk to as many operators. Listen, there's a path for everyone, and depending on what your long-term goals are, what your experience is in, I really believe in the idea if you're going to do ETA, you're going to do a self-funded search, you really got to come in as the operator for a period of time, right? I think, and I'd be lying if I said I don't imagine having operators in place as I grow that help me do that. But learning the business, being in the front lines, working alongside your employees, I think is critical to understanding what the business does, why it exists, why it does what it does well, what it doesn't do well. So I'd say that. I'd say, like, going back to the banking conversation, you can't know enough bankers and lenders, especially when you're starting out. And then even once you're in business, your needs might change, and you need to have those banking relationships. And then three is just persistence. This is a long and tough road. I had a very unique set of circumstances that made this journey. My search was much faster than others, and I got a sizable business out of it, larger than I was expecting. That doesn't happen for everyone. But even despite the short timeline, there were certainly really tough parts of the journey, and having the perseverance to get through if it's really what you want to do, I think it's worth it. But it's also great to have a community around you, whether that's through one of the educational courses, whether that's through a small peer group, whether that's through your MBA class. The more people that you can know that's going down this path and helping support you, or the more people you can reach out to and build relationships with along the way, the easier it will be to persevere when times get tough. So,
Yeah, people ask me all the time, in these meetups and stuff, like, what are the top 3 skills I need to develop to be a good acquisition entrepreneur? And I always tell them, 1, tenacity, right? You gotta have the perseverance to get through this process. It's not easy. And the second one is rapport building. Nobody's gonna sell you a business if they don't think you're a safe pair of hands and can believe in you and trust in you. So you need to learn how to build rapport with people and communicate with them. And then third, you better be a great operator because if you're buying anything that's got less than 50 employees with a complete executive staff, you're going to be the operator. Like, when you asked earlier, what are you looking for? I'm looking for companies at 51 employees and bigger because I want somebody there to be able to do it. I understand there'll be times where I am the operator. I'm the guy that has to go there, but I want a good team of people around me that I know will step up and take care of the majority of that role. And that usually happens on the bigger companies. Anybody out there listening, if you think you're going to buy a 10-person company and bring in an operator, it probably, one, can't afford it. Number two, you're going to be the operator more often than you think you are. I think that, and I've looked at hundreds and hundreds of companies at this point over years. I think the sweet spot is a minimum of 50 plus employees before you start having a diverse enough group and a good enough management structure to where you can either, one, afford to bring in a general manager, or two, be able to have somebody on staff that would just step up to that role and run it well. So I appreciate what you're doing. Thank you for being here today, man. It's just fun. The task for my team now is to bring more operators because this was a fun conversation.
yeah, this was great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So again, thank you, and we'll wrap this up and call that a show.
Thank you.
I want to announce our new channel partners, the ITX Marketplace. Since 1998, ITX has created $5 billion in value by selling more than 225 IT businesses in 20 countries. ITX works exclusively with IT-enabled businesses generating between 5 million and 30 million who are ready to be sold, and M&A decision makers who are ready to buy. For over 25 years, ITX has developed industry knowledge that helps determine whether a seller is a good fit for their buyers before making the match. ITX Mergers and Acquisition Marketplace we have partnered with has a proprietary database of 50,000 plus global buyers seeking IT service firms, managed service providers, Microsoft service providers, software as a service platforms, and channel partners with Microsoft, Oracle, ServiceNow, and the Salesforce space. If you have an IT enabled business you're ready to sell, I want you to visit the itexchangenet.com/marketplace. How to exit. That link will be in the show notes. Visit them now.